Okay, so today class we're working with comparing and ordering rational numbers. A rational number is a number that can be expressed as a ratio of two integers written as a fraction. So common fractions, terminating and repeating decimals, percents, and integers are all rational numbers. So if we look at our diagram here, what are our whole numbers that we have in our number bank? Well, a whole number is any number that is whole number that is greater than 0. So 0, 1, 2, and so on. So in our number bank, the number 1 would be our whole number. Integers are whole numbers that can be negative and positive. So the integers that we have in our number bank would be the -1. Whole numbers, all whole numbers are integers. And then we go to our rational numbers, which includes integers and whole numbers, as well as fractions, terminating and repeating decimals, and percents. So the rest that are in our number bank are rational numbers. So 0.8 or 8/10 would be a rational number, 2.2 repeating, and 1 2/3 are all rational numbers. Okay, so a common denominator is a common multiple of the denominators of two or more fractions. The least common denominator, or LCD, is the lowest common denominator. You can use common denominators to compare fractions. For example, if we have -1 5/6 and -1 1/6, we can try and see which one is bigger by using a number line. So, first thing is you want to graph each rational number on the number line. So we know that they're both between -2 and -1. So that's where you're going to start with your number line. In between them, because both of the fractions have 6 as their denominator, you want to create increments of 1/6 between -2 and 1. Then you can graph each point. So -1 5/6 and -1 1/6. Then you want to figure out which one is greater. So our -1 5/6 would be less than -1 1/6. So try this one on your own by graphing them on the number line, and I'll work through it with you after. Okay, so first thing you want to do is graph your number line. So I know that -5 5/9 and -5 1/9 are in between -6 and -5. And then I'm going to make increments of 1/9. So I'm going to have -5 and 8/9, -5 and 7/9, -5 and 6/9, 5/9, 4/9, 3/9, 2/9, 1/9. Okay, so here is our -5 and 1/9, and this would be -5 and 5/9, -5 and 4/9, -5 and 3/9, -5 and 2/9. Okay, so our 2 points are -5 and 1/9, which is right. Oops, my mistake. -5 and 1/9 would be right here, and -5 and 5/9 would be right here. So which one is bigger? -5 and 1/9. So you would have -5 and 5/9 is less than -5 and 1/9. Okay, so here's the second example. So now we want to figure out which one's bigger between 7/12 and 8/18. But what if you don't have the same denominator? That's where you got to make them equal. So we have 7/12 and 8/18. So first you got to find your lowest common denominator, your LCD, the one that both 12 and 18 go into. Well, I know that they both go into 36. So to get to 36, you would multiply 12 and 7 by 3, because 12 times 3 gives you 36. So 7 times 3 is 21, 12 times 3 is 36. And then on the other side, we have 8/18. And to get to 36 from 18, you would multiply by 2. So you get 16 over 36. Now that you have the same denominator, you can easily figure out which one's greater by looking at the numerator. So we know that 21 is greater than 16. So we know that 21 over 36 is greater than 16 over 36, or that 7/12 is greater than 8/18. So here's a few examples that I want you guys to try. So pause the video, work through them, and I'll get back with you. Okay, so here's our first one. So we have 1/5 and 7/50. 1/5 and 7/50. So I know that their LCD, their lowest common denominator, is 50 because they both go into 50. So this one we can keep the same. But this 1/5 we need to make into 50. So you multiply the top and bottom by 10, giving you 10 over 50. So now that the denominators are the same, you just look at the numerators, 10 and 7. We know that 10 is greater than 7, so 10/50 or 1/5 is greater than 7/50. All right, let's look at number 2. So we have 5/6 and 7/9. So now we need to figure out what our lowest common denominator is. Our lowest common denominator in this case would be 18. So to get to 18, for the first one, we need to multiply the top and bottom by 3. So 5 times 3 is 15. 6 times 3 gives you 18. For the other one, we have 9 going into 18. So 9 times 2 would give us 18, and 7 times 2 would give us 18. So we get 14 over 18 and 15 over 18. Because 15 is greater than 14, we know that 5/6 is greater than 7/9. All right, and then for number 3, we have a negative 9/16 and a negative 7/10. So you need to find your lowest common denominator. All right, so now we need to find their lowest common denominator, which in this case would be 80. So to make this fraction have a denominator of 80, you need to multiply it by 5 to the top and bottom, the numerator and denominator, giving us 45/80. Negative. Don't forget your negative sign. And for the second fraction, to get from 10 to 80, we would multiply by 8, and you got to do it to the numerator and denominator, giving you a negative 56 over 80. So we know that a negative 45 is bigger than a negative 56. So we know that a negative 9/16 is larger than a negative 7/10. All right, so let's look at the third example. In Mr. Mills' class, 20% of the students own roller skates. In Mrs. Burkhart's class, 5 out of 30 own roller skates. In which class does a greater fraction of students own roller skates? So the first thing you want to do is figure out how you can make them have a common denominator. So Mr. Mills' class had 20% owning roller skates. And in Miss Burkhart's class, 5 out of 30 own roller skates. So we don't want to leave this percent as a percent. We want it to be a fraction. So 20% is 20 over 100. And then we want to leave the 5. That's already a fraction. Okay, so now we want them to have a common denominator. And these two have the common denominator of 300. So to get 300, we would multiply the first fraction's numerator and denominator by 3, giving us 60 over 300. And for the second fraction, we would multiply by 10 to the numerator and denominator, giving us 50. So in Mr. Mills' class, we have 60 out of 300, and for Mrs. Burkhart, we have 50 over 300. So which class does a greater fraction of students own roller skates? It would be Mr. Mill's class, the 20%. Or if you want to simplify this fraction down, you can divide by 10 and get 6/30ths, or 1/5. Okay, so why don't you guys try this one, pause the video, and I'll get back to you after you finish. All right, so in a second period class, 25% of students like to bowl. In a fifth period class, 12 out of 28 students like to bowl. In which class does a greater fraction of the students like to bowl? Okay, so in our second period class, we had 25%. When written as a fraction is 25 over 100, or 1/4. And in fifth period, we had 12 out of 28 students. Okay, so our least common denominator between 4 and 28 is 28. So we can leave this one as is, and this one we just need to have a denominator of 28. So you're going to multiply the numerator and denominator by 7, giving you 7 over 28. So the question's asking, in which class does a greater fraction of the students like to bowl? Well, your numerator 12 is greater than the numerator 7, so it would be our fifth period class, the 12/28. You can also order rational numbers using place values. So here we have a set of numbers, and they want us to line up the decimal points from least to greatest and compare them. So what I like to do is line them up by their decimal points, so 3.44. Pi is the same thing as 3.14, and it goes on and on. So this would be 3.14159, on and on and on. So that would be 3.141, I'll just go to 5. And then we have 3.14 and 3.4 repeating, which means the 4 is going to keep going. Just so we have the same number of digits, I'm going to fill in some zeros here. Okay, so now looking at them, we need to figure out which one's smallest. So they all have 3's, so we want to go to their tenths number. So this tenth is a 4, this one's a 1, 1, and 4. So we know that our ones with the ones are smaller. So then we need to go to the hundredths place. Well, they both have 4's on them too. So then you have to go to your thousandths place. Well, on our pi, we have a 1,000th, and on our 3.14, we have a 0,000th. So that makes this 3.14 our smallest number. So now that one's out of the way, we know that our pi, the 3.14, on and on and on, would be our second largest. I'm going to label it as pi. Okay, so now we have 3.44, sorry, this is repeating, so this would be 444. So now we have 3.44 and 3.4 repeating. So again, you want to compare their decimals. So they both have 3's in their ones pot position. They have 4's in their tenths. They have 4's in their hundredths. And then they have something different in their thousandths. So the 3.4 repeating has a 4,000th, and our 3.44 has a 0 in the thousandths place. So because that one has a 0 in the thousandths place, that one's going to be our smallest in comparison with those two, giving us 3.44, which leaves our 3.4 repeating as our greatest decimal. So why don't you guys try this one on your own, and I will get back with you after you finish. Okay, So in this set, we have 23%, 0.21, 1/4, and 1/5. So the first thing you want to do is get them to have into decimals. So let's make them all into decimals. So 23% would be 0.23 or 23 hundredths. 0.21 would stay as 0.21. 1/4 becomes 0.25, and 0.5 would be 0.20 or 0.2. Okay, so now when you're putting them from least to greatest, you have them all with their decimals with the same position. So I like to line them up by their decimals so you can kind of compare them. So we have 0.023. I'm going to bring them all over. So we have 0.021, 0.25, and 0.20. So I move those ones over. And now you can compare them vertically. So we know that 20 is the smallest, giving us 0.20 would be the smallest, then 0.21, then 0.23, then 0.25. And if you want to rewrite them as their original forms, you can make this 1/5, 0.21, 23%, and then 1/4. All right, that is it for your video today, and see you next time.